Namaste, Neha.
Namaste.
Welcome to the LSM podcast.
Rape culture, especially in India, there are so many activation points. Like Nirbhaya was the first one. Kolkata is the second one.
Thousands of people have taken to the streets of West Bengal, India, to condemn the rape and murder of a female trainee doctor at a Kolkata hospital.
1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men and 1 in 2 transgender people are sexually assaulted.
I want us to just unpack a little bit about what is sex-focused trauma therapy.
Sex-focused trauma therapy focuses on
What is the connectedness between sexual health and mental health?
keep quiet, don't talk about it.
It's something we are used to.
It's something we are used to because we've had to be. Important to ask, why do I want to help someone first? Am I trying to help them for me so that I feel better in this friendship? Or am I trying to help them really in their life journey?
Namaste, Neha.
Namaste.
Welcome to the LSM podcast. We are here just one day after you won the UN Laadli Award. It's for gender-sensitive representation
In the media.
in the media. So congratulations. And your book is a bestseller and everyone's loving it and we're seeing all the rave reviews. I'm going to talk a little bit about the book today and the topics that you touch on in the book. But first, let's just hear about your award
Sure.
and what you won and a little bit about the work that's led to it.
Yeah, absolutely, Harshal. Thanks for having me. Thanks, everyone, for being here. This is an award, which is the UN Laadli Award, commissioned by Population First and Laadli and the United Nations Population First initiative, which basically recognizes and honors grassroots practitioners who've been working in the field of sexual wellness or sexual health for a long time. And they are local people that they choose. So a lot of the people who won, the other awardees were journalists, writers, who are working on very real issues of people's lives, in inner lives. So
What do we mean by real issues?
like issues that are faced in the interpersonal realm. So violence, abuse, trauma, how women in rural areas access mental health, how it is very difficult to get a divorce, why in the rural area, why. And then in the connection to the city, when there are city people doing such work also, it connects basically rural and urban in a very beautiful way. These awards, this particular organization does a really good job. So I was happy to be part of this bunch this time. But more importantly, the masterclass that I did, it's we talk a lot.
You won because of the masterclass.
I won, yes. The masterclass won, and it was directed by somebody called Tej and commissioned by a sexual wellness brand called That Sassy Thing, which is rare. I mean, generally, people don't commission such long format depth content. There's a little bit of a trend right now to give out very bite-sized content so that people understand it, which is also helpful. And the second point is that why this is different is that, in rape culture, especially in India, there are so many activation points, like Nirbhaya was the first one. Kolkata is the second one in our collective memory. And when it happens, our nervous system collectively gets very overheated. No, Harshal? But there's not a lot of digital content talking about what after that. Not about criminal justice and police, but what can I do to heal from this? And what can my partner do to help me to heal from this? So this was made in 2023 or 22, if I'm not wrong. And
So what can I, as in the victim?
What can the victim survivor do? Or what can the family, friend, partner do?
Got it.
So the digital masterclass is like a 5-course module.
And is it available anywhere right now
It's
for people to
free.
access?
Free, available anywhere.
So how can people access it?
All they have to do is just Google healing from sexual trauma, Neha Bhat masterclass, and they will get That Sassy Things platform.
Superb. Amazing. And so the UN awarded you for that and they felt like it was very poignant to do that. And what is in that masterclass? If you could just give the listeners a bit of why do you think they found the depth in it?
Yeah.
Because depth is a word like people associate with you, people who read you, people who follow you. And like you said, you also spoke about the bite-sized content, and depth is almost the antithesis of bite-sized content. So Like how do you, like what is in that people find so deep?
Yeah. I think there's many facets to this question, but mostly I think I would like to be way more deep. But I feel like I'm building the collective consciousness to kind of get there with me. The Healing from Sexual Trauma Masterclass is designed in a similar way that my book Unashamed is designed, that we are essentially, who am I? I'm a scholar academic. I have already kind of done years of work in these elite institutions in the US, in India. This has been my life journey. Now, how do we make these really academic, important concepts available to people who can actually use it and apply it in their everyday life? This is my entire clinical life practice, right? So I've divided it into two ways of looking at it. One is like, can offer a tool in print, so that people can go through the journey of healing, which is Unashamed, my book. But the second is in digital media also, how do we do this thoughtfully and sensitively? Which is why the Healing from Sexual Trauma Masterclass, which I must give credit to my director as well, Tej, they and I together, they're also queer, I am queer. So we came up with these 5 course modules to divide the entire journey into bite-sized content, but not so bite-sized that you're just getting 30-second information. It's like you're actually being asked to move in a journey with us. So it starts from what is rape culture, how does it impact us, goes into what are the ways to help yourself when you're getting activated from the news, especially if you are a survivor of rape yourself or sexual trauma yourself, which I must say the statistics, it's 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men and 1 in 2 transgender people every minute are sexually assaulted. 1 in 3 women, 1 in 6 men, and 1 in 2 transgender people.
This is in India or world?
This is supposed to be more American statistics, but taken from a large pool of American audiences. But in India, we still don't have this kind of number. But the research is saying that it's kind of this much or maybe higher.
Yeah, because also I feel like when I read the statistics of India, and especially during this wave, what happened is that you try to understand that this is more deep-seated. Like you intuitively feel that rape culture and, crossing of these boundaries is more deep-seated in today's India. But when you look at the statistics, it almost feels like India is equal to the other countries. And then there's this whole wave of underreporting that people talk about. And I feel like when you look at it from the surface, when you see that, okay, because sometimes policymakers, they look at numbers, they look at where things are overall, and then they will be like, there are so many other problems, and this is one of the problems, but we seem to be on global comparable with these problems. And I just feel like that is, and because policymakers also have their challenges, they have to look at it from that standpoint because they have to apportion resources. So how does somebody like you work with policymakers, and what are the signals that you send to the policymakers, and what is the signals that they send in terms of how policy will be shaped?
So sorry for the interruption, but 94.3% of you are regular viewers of this podcast and haven't yet hit the subscribe button. So if you're enjoying the conversation so far, can I please request you to hit subscribe?
Oh, that's a great question, and there's many parts to it, but let me try to answer the core of it, which is that how does a practitioner like myself, if I understand your question correctly, who has many legs in many pools, because conventional psychotherapists are not doing this.
Yeah.
Conventional psychotherapists are working in their specific institution.
Yeah.
It's the institution's job to go to the policymaker. So if you're working for a foundation, a hospital, a clinic, it's that person's job. I'm a private practitioner, but my different journey is that I've had my legs and hands in all of these institutions.
Right.
I've worked in hospitals. I was just telling your colleague earlier that in Bombay, I'm very used to travel because I used to go in a train every day to the jail for like 5 to 7 years and get beaten up while going in the train to the jail and then come back and get beaten up after therapy, like back. This is just the average person's NGO worker's life in India. So a lot of people are not talking to the policymakers. Policymakers are not necessarily talking to grassroots people, which is why such awards and people who build bridges are very important. And I consider myself a bridge builder at the core of it, which is why I work across political spectrum. I work across the gender spectrum. I work across NGO, private, consultancy, business. I do it. I try to build bridges in all.
Yeah, and I just feel like, it's a great, I just want to interrupt here because I feel like it's an important learning for somebody who's trying to work to influence policy. So you could do two ways, and across industries it works this way, which is whether it's EV, whether it's mental health, whether it's
EV is
electric vehicles. I'm drawing the parallel across the board, which is because policy is shaped by the conduits of the institutions that are connected to the policymakers, and they send signals.
Right.
And then those signals really then help define what is going to be the way forward, because there's industry lobbies, there's all of those are basically signal senders to the way policy is then going to be dictated. So what you're talking about, and especially for people who want to change the country from ground up, this is important to be able to sit in those centers, and it's important to identify which are the centers that have the voice of the policymakers.
Absolutely.
And then go through that to define it up.
And I feel so sad that has not been the country's thinking for these many years, because we've really suffered for it, man. Like, we've suffered in ways that we just don't even understand. In some of these places, like yesterday I met 3 caseworkers who have come from Bundelkhand. And she got into Shatabdi at like 12 a.m., cooked for her husband, helped some acid attack survivor, then got into her flight at 5 a.m., then came for the award ceremony, then left back to a job. And this is her life. This is her life. She does this all day, every day, right? And then for her to meet more urban caseworkers like myself or someone else, there's a huge gap in communication and knowledge. And it would have been, I love this award ceremony, but I want these hundreds of these all over, constantly, funded by not just government, but funded by private practitioners, donors as well, to actually bridge build. Now let's come to the second point here, which I want to speak about, this rape culture and why we're so kind of detached from, we don't know, like policy numbers are saying something else, lived experience is saying something else.
And the men will say not all men. So this, I'm just reacting to this detachment, because that statement comes from a sense of detachment, that I want to detach myself from the problem and I don't want to take responsibility for the problem. So I feel like a lot of these reactions are very like, let's put a curtain between what's the real issue.
And that now you've opened up a second depth in me.
But I'll let you finish the first one.
I do agree with not all men, and I do agree with not all women, and I do agree with I actually am very far away from this idea that when we paint society in such general brushstrokes, we don't give people space to change. It's like saying all white people are racist. And I was conditioned in that mindset as well because of the schools and I studied in, and I come from exceptionally elite schools. That's what you're told, right? Which is theory. It's excellent theory for change to happen, but on a practical purpose, when you see it, people don't have space then to say, then where is my scope to actually be somebody different from this theory that you're putting on me, right? So I feel not all men, these are all great social media campaigns for like people to kind of get the conversation started. I don't think it's effective at an interpersonal level.
Got it.
That's
danger and stereotypes. So let's come back to your detachment.
Yeah, so we have detachment from a lot of these numbers. Numbers are detached from lived experience. Lived experience is detached from numbers. Yeah. And I was saying the second point to that is, what I see in my field a lot, Harshal, is that psychotherapists don't talk to spiritualists. Spiritualists don't talk to psychiatrists. Psychiatrists don't talk to even the same doctor in their same hospital, because everybody's practice is so different and so like siloed that it really impacts the core of healing, which is mind, body have to talk to each other. And every person has a different way to heal. So there have to be multiple modalities when you're looking at healthcare and wellness. So which comes back to, if policy makers could do a little bit better
connecting the
dots. In India, faith-based healers are the first people that Indians go to. Now, is this a great thing? Maybe, maybe not. Is a faith-based healer only going to give you, I mean, am I saying all psychotherapy is nonsense and, faith-based healer is great? No. But I'm saying that is the reality of our cultural context. So what some grassroots organizations do very well is that they connect mental health people to the faith-based healer. So first the family is going to the faith-based healer and saying, my child was raped. Can you do a ceremony for the child? But now the faith-based healer can also have training to say, yes, I will do the ceremony and I will spiritually help you. But the mental physical trauma has to be taken care of, by a physical doctor, by a trained medical doctor, and by a trained psychotherapist. So let's connect you. Versus this kind of condescension that happens from every silo, that they are
just
bad.
This part is good and you don't need this part. And that's where walls are created. And this is such a fantastic example that you're giving. And I'm curious to understand which parts of the country is it happening in, this interconnectedness.
I will look at the exact...
Because this example that you've given about, faith-based healers guiding to mental health professionals, guiding to, the entire ecosystem. I mean, that's a beautiful model to replicate.
Yes.
And I'm curious if we've seen any success.
No, we have seen success, and there's there's a report that came out which I can just take out from my phone and show you later, in terms of which state exactly. But we can talk about that. But generally, what I'm saying also is that is the first thing that families do, specifically middle
class.
class.
That point is understood.
Low middle class families.
Yeah, that because that is our predisposition and instinct that this is where we will go. And I think it's a fantastic point you make about the interconnectedness between these.
So what some private practitioners do without even telling, because it doesn't look good to tell, because you may not want to tell your policymaker you're doing that, but they do it anyway, is that local doctors, local therapists will then connect to the local healer and say, just keep my number. And if this is, so this happens all across the country is what I'm trying to say. But the specific report that came out, we can absolutely
and that's where
take that out.
The things like your masterclass can actually even be used for faith-based healers to just go through. Say that, look, these resources are available and this is where it is scalable. So I think it would be fantastic, and I hope people can listen to this and see if they can spread that masterclass, because then it's from that purpose that you made it to percolate to every part.
In fact, when I do my regular masterclasses, which are training and supervision building for young clinicians or senior clinicians as well, I do these online, and retreats as well, I make it a point to say that this is a bridge building space. So you will have people like Reiki healers, astrologers, numerologists, Vastu folks, folks who may be into chiropractic or cupping, any kind of alternative practice are welcome. What you are not allowed to say is you're not allowed to call yourself a mental health practitioner. That you're not allowed to say. Mental health practice is a very specific Western psychotherapy practice which comes with a certain training. It's very specific. So chai therapy, no. Just Reiki therapy, no. So we help to segregate the words, and then something beautiful happens, Harshal, in these spaces, that people who have curiosity about each other's practices through the master classes, now I'm talking about my training masterclasses, not the digital one. There people start learning that bridge building is actually very natural. It's the third parties that's come in the middle and said, don't do it. Naturally, you're actually, if you are a deep healer, you will understand that there is interconnections everywhere.
Okay, so I am going to go into the link between Jyotish, astrology, and therapy. I am going to go into that, but I'm going to wait for that a little bit. I actually want to start with, you, and I want to now come to the book, because I want to talk about, in Unashamed, you talk about sex-focused trauma therapy. Yeah. So I want us to just unpack a little bit about what is sex-focused trauma therapy. Yeah. And just a follow-up to that is that if you can also break down how is a sex therapist different from a therapist. So just for the audience to break that down.
Yeah. So let's go very slow. Let's start from the beginning. I love your questions, but they're so deep that now 100 things are opening for me. A therapist is someone that we go to. I'm sure people know this, but let me just reiterate. A therapist is someone that we go to when our friends, family, and advice doesn't work. We go to a trained professional who has a certain amount of qualifications, degree and practice, life practice, to help us to move out of the problem that we are facing. This is the definition of psychotherapy. This is not psychology. This is not psychiatry. Psychology is academic theory. Not every psychologist is a psychotherapist. Not every psychiatrist is a psychotherapist. Psychotherapy is the carpenter. We are the mechanics. We are the mechanics of the field, right? So we are going to look at the entire part and we're going to say, this is the pattern, let's work on this pattern, let's do this. So that's the therapy part. Now you add specializations on top of the foundation therapy that you have. Again, therapy different from counseling. Counseling is advice, counseling is short term, counseling is like grief counseling, depression counseling, to get out of the problem. Therapy is long term. So you get the foundation of a long term practitioner as a psychotherapist. So this is where you hear arts based psychotherapist, music based psychotherapist, dance based psychotherapist. I'm an arts based psychotherapist. So our training involves creative forms. For me, there are talk based psychotherapists, there are CBT, DBT. So everybody has their own modality.
What is CBT, DBT?
Cognitive behavior therapy or dialectical behavior therapy, which is more like mental ways to work through something that's coming up for you. Now, on top of the therapy foundation, it's like, think of it like a staircase. Step one is that when you specialize out of college and masters, that's when you get a psychotherapy degree. First you get a BA, then you get an MA in this country. In other country, mine is a little bit unique, so it's different. On top of that, you have to specialize now in the next set of skills that you want. As a therapist, I'm talking. So here we go into like special needs or neurodivergence, like ADHD or any kind of mental behavior that may not be the norm. So neurodivergence is one. Or you could have something like trauma therapy, which is very specific to like intense trauma. Sex-focused trauma therapy is a very specific field, which is actually about sexual trauma. Now, there are very less people in the field who specialize in this, who talk about this. And this has also come in the limelight a couple of years ago because psychotherapy as a field is expanding a little bit. So some of the senior practitioners don't like that it's expanding. Some of the newer practitioners like that it's expanding. So, which is why you're seeing many people...
Why do the seniors not like that it's expanding?
Because they consider all forms of psychodynamic therapy. They are like, there's nothing called trauma or sex. When you're with a very good psychotherapist, you are going to talk about all those things.
Got it.
The point is absolutely valid. It's just that those require a certain kind of privilege. They require you to have access to a very good therapist that you like, that you're in long-term relationship with, then your family goes to them or your friends go to them. It's a very privileged space to find that right person for you, right? So short-term modalities have come in, business people have come in, insurance models have come in. They've changed the whole scape. Now, this is also where I'm with the senior therapist. This is not fully good for the field to just offer out the modality. So this is a whole other conversation.
Yeah, I can feel like it's going in another direction. So that we'll park that one and come back to this.
So sex
because
focused,
there's a lot to unpack there also, but that's a different discussion only.
It's different and it's coming back to sex focused trauma therapy. You combine sexual, like this the aspect of life that is kind of behind closed doors. Okay, that is specific to that. So it's not just being married to a man being married to a woman. It's more than that. Sex-focused trauma therapy focuses on alternative sexualities, like being queer, being asexual, being celibate. It goes into the theory of that. What have people written about this? What is the research about this? That's all we study all that. And that's why we come to the field with a little more knowledge about how to help someone who may be facing these choices in their life and maybe facing oppression or maybe facing resistance.
Sorry, just you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I understood after reading, and I'm distilling it, but what I understood is that I'm going back to the 1 in 3 women every minute, 1 in how many men? 6 men. So going through a sexually traumatic experience or some kind of sexual experience where their boundary may have been crossed, and how that and the repression of that impacts the way they live their life in the present moment. That is what I understood a little bit also about what is sex-focused trauma therapy.
Yeah, you've skipped ahead. I was building to that, but that's exactly. So I'm just trying to explain the paths, Harshal, because there are so many paths. You are advanced, but in general, people have to understand it's like a staircase. Therapy is first, then you add a specialty. In that, there is trauma, sex, grief, depression, etc.
Right.
When you add sex-focused trauma therapy to it, now in this, many other staircases open.
Got it.
In sex-focused work, we of course talk about rape, sexual trauma, assault, but we also talk about alternative modalities of sexual being. So asexuality, celibacy, queerness, all of that comes under sex-focused therapy. Okay. Now within that, I have chosen to specialize in sexual trauma because that's my area of interest. It's something I was obsessed with as a child, like studying. Like I really loved gender as a concept. I would really think about these things very deeply. So I naturally started from the theater, went into counseling, then went into therapy, then went into jails. I mean, I've had a very unique journey, but it's been one by one. The thread has been same for me, which is trauma and then sexual trauma. So I used to work with children, then I worked with adults, then I worked with families, then I started working with groups. So it was very natural for me. But not every sex-focused trauma therapist or not every trauma therapist has this specialization.
Understood. Okay, great. Thank you for breaking that down. And so you've so I also want to talk a little bit about the connectedness between sexual health and mental health. And how does one look at it? How can I look at, firstly, how do I diagnose my sexual health? And then what is the connectedness between sexual health and mental health?
Yeah, let's talk about Kusha, who's in chapter 1. I'm not sure if you've... Yeah. So Kusha was this woman who came to me, who's extremely sex positive, comes from an urban metro idea of sex positivity, from a Delhi college. All names are changed, identities are changed, so nobody should worry. But when she came to me, she was very much like, Neha, just give me a sex toy. That's why I'm coming to you as a sex therapist. Tell me exactly which one to buy. And
so that's a lot of people who see your title online saying sex therapist. Do they feel like I will come to you and I will start having better sex?
Exactly. I start having better sex, or help me to break up with my partner and tell the partner to be more sex positive. I'll just bring my partner and then you fix the partner.
Yeah, you make him have better sex.
Make her have, make him have.
Absolutely.
Whoever.
Make my partner have better sex with me. That's why I'm going to book an appointment with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or it'll be like sex toy. Like what is the right sex toy
Kusha
for
said
this?
that just give me a sex toy. I want to have better sex.
Right. Kusha was just like, let's just do this, right? And so over a long time is when the openings happened for her, where she was like, I don't know why I'm so angry. Like each time I masturbate,
So sorry.
I get very angry.
When you said over a long time, I just want to break that down, because for people listening also, what is that over a long time typically for a person to arrive at Kusha's journey? And I'll let you finish Kusha's journey, but I just want to interject with this. When you say over a long time, how many months, years?
It can be anything between 12 to 16 sessions. So 12 to 16 hours, which is 3.5 months, 3 to 4 months is what is an average time that it should take you to feel comfortable enough with your psychotherapist to get to something as deep as that.
Got it. Okay.
If it's going well.
Yeah. So let's come back to Kusha. So she said, okay, Neha, just give me a sex toy. Before I interrupted you with, what is that period of time? So you were saying that after a period of time, what then happened?
Yeah. So, people will come to me like Kusha and they will just want me to diagnose them, or they will want me to just give them something easy, even though they know depth. But what really good trauma therapy can do is to connect that the problem is not the problem that you think it is. The problem is much deeper than that. It's the iceberg. And that's the thing that most people want to avoid because it's difficult. It requires your ego breaking. It requires you to learn new things. It requires you to do things that are uncomfortable. So Kusha thought she was just this angry person who just couldn't masturbate when all of her friends were sex positive. They were all having these romantic, dreamy love affairs in college. Half of them were getting married. And she was like, what's wrong with me? Something is clearly wrong with me. Please just tell me. So over 4-5 months, we worked on a very gentle therapeutic relationship, but because she didn't need a lot of, she was very direct herself. She didn't need me to push. Generally, I can push people. She didn't need that. She was anyway that person. She needed softness and tenderness, which we did. We got there, and it really uncovered this very old memory for her, Harshal, where she was naked at 6. And she was coming out from the bath. She looked to her right, and there was this huge window on her right in her bedroom, and there were these eyes of this uncle, this 85-year-old uncle, creeping on her naked body, who she has never seen before. This was like a neighbor or somebody that she doesn't know, a random person in the house, on the street. She yelled, and her mother came. Luckily, mother did not slap her or hurt her. Many mothers can be cruel. Many parents can be like, that didn't happen. Stop, you're hallucinating. Mother was like, oh my God, closed the window, grabbed the child and took her away. But she internalized that memory as if there is something wrong with her naked body. That each time that somebody looks at her, it is something negative. So in masturbation, that was transferred into her body like an imprint. We call it an imprint of saying that, oh my God, every time I experience pleasure when I'm naked, I think someone is looking at me, someone wants to get something from me. So this is what you talked about a couple of minutes ago when you were saying like how someone's sexual trauma impacts their adult life. And that is what I want to connect back to, like how sexual health impacts someone's mental health, okay, as an adult. So now she's 23, wants to get married, has a lovely partner. Partner was very open. Partner was like, I want to help you. But she just thought that she's just angry and things are bad with her. Things are wrong with her. Later on, as the healing continued, partner, of course, came into therapy, did some work by himself, and partner learned to not internalize this as his fault, because he was like, not all men, I am not the rapist, no, I have not done anything wrong to you. Why are you taking this out on me? And to his credit, he's right. She shouldn't take it out on him. But the trauma is so deep that it's not in her control. Like as she's experiencing pleasure, she's experiencing fear.
Yeah, I also feel like this podcast is great for the people who've read the book, especially this, what you're talking about, because I think now you're putting it in so much more context. And I have a follow-up to this, like Kusha's story of those eyes peering in, such a painful story, and then showing up. You also talk about repression in the book, and you talk about how that is that could, you almost say that it takes so many months to get to that 6-year-old zone, because we've kind of put it away so deep in our memory. And that's a natural human tendency, I guess, because, when something so hurtful and painful happens to you, you don't want to keep it at the top of your mind. So why do we do this? I have 2 segues in this. One is like, why do we repress? But if you want to correct me on something.
No, I don't want to lose what you're saying, because you're saying something very powerful, and what's coming to me is, I want to just interject by saying, if you can hold the second part of what you're saying, is that, Harshal, we don't talk about enough, no? In our context, we are a broken country. So we have to recognize that we are a broken bird. That wounded bird is the synonym, the metaphor used for India.
Wounded sone ki chidiya.
Wounded sone ki chidiya. But if you think about it like on a metaphoric level, like sometimes I just feel so much pain, really, because I love India as a place, as a spiritual power. I just feel like we are not recognizing that it's 200 years of colonial trauma and then so many more years of other stuff post-independence. Now, this American ideas of things coming in, which may or may not be suitable to who we are. So it's this constant fight for survival that has only calmed down now for some parts of the country.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just also want to break it down a bit, when we say colonial trauma, when we say this Americanization that's coming in, I just want to break that also a bit, because just like you gave the example of Kusha, which is, we could label it as childhood trauma, but it's a very specific kind of trauma, which is showing up as anger. And this colonial trauma also that we've faced, it's a broad label. And the thing with broad labels, I understand why we do broad labels, because it's then easy to communicate. But sometimes in the broad, a lot of the details get missed. And I know you talk about that also, because colonial trauma also has so many subparts to it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to say that I don't want people to think that these things are easy to heal because now we've named them. So I just wanted to interject earlier when you were saying, and we'll come to this, that, when it's a natural human tendency to bury difficult things. Yes, when you have the privilege to, it's very natural. But with us, the problem is it's not only natural, it's also forced upon, because we have been in survival mode for such a long time that for our parents, our grandparents, the main part was roti, kapda, makan. Is my child going to be able to have a house in Bombay, in Delhi, in Chennai, in Bangalore, in Calcutta, in whatever city? That is the main struggle. The struggle is not emotions. The struggle is not mental. The struggle is not psycho-spiritual. This is now, which is what the millennials, younger millennials and Gen Zs and Gen Alphas are now reaping the benefits of, that there is stability in a way. And that now you can talk about this. So in our context, the burying is even more a survival strategy.
It's something we are used to.
It's something we are used to because we've had to be. If we didn't have to be, we would also have many, many ways of talking about this early on. Why does someone repress? That's the question to ask. Why does someone repress?
But don't you feel like, yes, I understand with Indian context, and I'm asking this question from a place of privilege. I come from a place of privilege. So I feel like, yes, there is a lot of truth to everything else that you said. And I also feel like even if you are privileged, if your rest of your life is fine, if it's a painful, traumatic experience,
yes,
you kind of
100%
move it so deep.
Yes.
And you keep it like deep-seated, almost lock it in a room, and then there's, like that part of you is kept locked away in a room because that's just, like you just don't want to touch it. It's something you can't talk to anybody about. It's something that you can't necessarily face yourself.
That's right.
But then these parts, when they're locked away, they have a way of catching up. I mean, there's you'd always have, life always catches up to you. So that is a way of life catching up to you.
Absolutely, 100%. And if you don't have any of the culture telling you that it's healthy to open the door, talk about it, relax, okay, take a couple of days off from your job, heal from your breakup, or let's not fill your system with alcohol only to cope with the trauma, or with drugs, or with any kind of substance use. Let's just take a pause. If the culture helps, the culture also then reinforces the thing that it doesn't have to go so far into the repressal. Of course, every human being represses pain, but to not this extent. Our survival strategies have been so intense. That's why you see older people in our culture not being able to even talk about rape, or even accept that sex is a real thing. Like, you'll watch lust stories or something like that online, on Netflix with a family, and instantly the family will change it, which is what I talk about in the book. Why? Shame, morality, yes, but also it's triggering lots of people's own stuff. And the culture is saying, keep quiet, don't talk about it, not here, not now, in fact, never. Because why? Because of so many years of this kind of trauma that the nation has seen, right? Where you have to have the resources to even want to go here. So yes, to your point, everybody goes through this, and there are levels.
What I also find interesting about what you said is that young people today, and I fully agree with young people that we need to take care of mental health, but I feel like a lot of young people's view on taking care of mental health is disengage and, just warm it or silo it. Like, if I'm doing X at work, I'm just going to, mental health is a lot of the subject is linked to
protection.
Yeah. It's a lot of it is linked to protection, but it's not linked to introspection, which is where, a lot of the work in your book talks about. And that's difficult to do because I also feel like, and I empathize with why it's difficult to do, because I would go through the same thing, which is our attention spans have gone down. So because our attention spans have gone down, I think that's the biggest challenge with respect to why introspection is difficult to do. And then because introspection is not happening and we are just doing protection, we are kind of waiting for life to catch up to us, saying, look, I'm waiting for life to catch up to me. But then life will come and give you one big mukka.
Yes, which is the nature of life, which is the nature of suffering, which is where spirituality is so powerful, especially in our culture, because it teaches us that. So this is an important point, just to riff off of what you're saying. I love this point, Harshal. It's one of my favorite things to talk about, that literally online there is a reward now. The algorithm rewards people who only play oppressor versus oppressed. Like things get rewarded for that reason, right? So this is what my supervisor, people who I look up to as mentors, really like caution about in terms of psychotherapy, really caution, because they're senior practitioners in the field. It's not like they haven't seen world changing and all of that. They say something like, the more you focus only on mental health being victimhood and protecting yourself from ever having pain, the more you're going to just stay in that silo and not ever understand what it is to confront pain so that you get to the next stage. So trauma therapy actually is about healing from the trauma, but which doesn't mean repressing, which is what's so confusing for Indians sometimes, because they'll be like, I'm fine, but I'm fine. I don't need this because I'm able to cope. And then the moment you see the conflict come up in their life, they'll like be smashing cups, they'll be very high, they'll be very drugged out, or they'll be very like on some kind of substances, etc. And they're using that to cope. But then they see mental health language and they're like, I don't want this. I don't want to constantly complain about what's wrong. And they're absolutely right. That is not what good mental health is, that constantly complaining and constantly protecting yourself from pain. So, which is where this corporatization of therapy and all is being critiqued a little bit, where it's like, just because a term like mental health is buzzwording in the younger generation, doesn't mean that the generation is understanding what healing is.
And I also feel like what I'm getting out of this conversation is I'm getting two things. One is you spoke about the interconnectedness of things, and you spoke about how mental health connected to Jyotish and then connected to religious healing, and
we didn't come to Jyotish at all.
We'll come to that, spiritual practices and, all of that. And I feel like also the role that we are trying to play with Level SuperMind, it kind of came to me in this conversation, because I feel like the attention span linkage to introspection is then a very clear role for us. I never really understood it, why, actually I was trying to place that through, which is that in this ecosystem, what is our role? But if we focus on increasing attention span through people who increase their practice, and I'm not saying that just increasing a meditation practice is the solution to all the problems, but I feel it's a very, very important part, because it just gives you space to introspect. It takes you inwards, and then it teaches your mind to be still and with yourself for longer, which is where the link to the work that you do comes in. And then, but then I have to use those tools with specificity, which is how you break it down in the book. So there's beautiful exercises at the end of the book, which are great questions, which make you contemplate and then probably give out answers.
Yes, and I see that as a decolonial practice. I see what you are doing, what I am doing as decolonial practices. We are bringing what is natural to us in this cultural context, which is yoga, meditation, healing, our alternative practices, our local practices, which are natural to us. We are bringing it back to the urban educated mind first, kind of breaking down for them, hey, when we say it, please also believe us, not just a bunch of Americans who come and then sort of teach yoga. No dissing them, but I'm saying it's our practice. We can really own it.
Absolutely. I have another question with respect to, so this is, what if I have a friend who is kind of in the space of protective mental health, this thing that we spoke about, which is that to protect my mental health, I'm going to disengage. So just one very interesting part, which is that, you spoke about confronting versus disengaging. And, that's also where the link with spirituality is for me. Instantly, what came to my mind is the Bhagavad Gita, because the Bhagavad Gita is set on the battlefield and Krishna is telling Arjun to confront and, live in the world and purify yourself, not live out of the world and purify yourself. It's not about detachment, but it's about yukta vairagya, or, like detached but connected.
Yes, detachment while being connected. which is such an important health skill. I think I practice it all the time as a female sex therapist in India that has to take my body everywhere, that travels to these places, I have to be detached from the narrative that men are unsafe in a way, because men protect me all the time, and also men hurt me, women also hurt me, yes, but the work. So it's like you have to, you committed to your purpose, yet you're detached from what happens, and yet you're in your purpose. So I love the Bhagavad Gita also for that reason.
Yeah. So what if I have a friend who is in that protective zone, is resorting to, healing his or her mental health by being protected, but not confronting anything. And but I'm not able to get through. I just feel sad that I'm not able to get through. The person is then saying, okay, let's get a couple of drinks every weekend, and chooses to, the solution to it is that I'm going to have a couple of drinks and everything is fine.
Yeah.
So if I deeply care about that person, how can I broach this topic with that person?
How old is this person in this example?
Let's say it's a 26, 28 something person. Yeah. He or she is in her job or his job, and progressing well in life. Things are going good, as they are now in India for lots of people. But I feel, for lots of urban people. So then how do I broach the topic?
Yeah. I love this caregivers question, because I think chronic caregivers become therapists. It's like important to ask, like, why do I want to help someone first? For anyone who is a chronic caregiver, who likes to help their friends, who likes to bring people out of problems, why am I trying to help them? Am I trying to help them for me so that I feel better in this friendship, or am I trying to help them really in their life journey? Now, if it's number two, if it's the latter, then you've got to understand what all that person is doing in their life. Like, are they in a space to really even go inwards, or is their life like so hectic right now that defense that they're exhibiting, it's a defense, it's called a psychological defense, to not want to confront your pain, to not want to go deep. It's actually extremely brave to go deep. It's extremely brave to remain in grief. Okay, this is not talked about enough. It's extremely brave to first accept that I am in grief, or I am in pain, or I am in anger, or I did fuck up, or I did mess up, or I did hurt someone. And then to really allow yourself to be in that and not bypass here or there. Which doesn't mean you have to not be functional in the world, but it's very brave to give your body the time that it needs. Now, to give your body the time that it needs, you've got to have the life circumstances supporting you. So if your friend's life circumstances are so hectic, anything you say is going to get more defense, because they're going to want to protect. Yeah. So 26 to 28, which is why I asked the age, like always check where someone is on the age timeline, on the soul plan, on like where their life is headed. 26 to 28 is a young person just who's gotten their life bearings, even if they're super successful, etc. They've just got their life bearings on how to hold themselves. What is life like? What does society expect of me? These are questions that come in the 20s. Late 20s is when these questions start getting real answers, and you start really your identity formation starts. Now let's connect to Jyotish. Jupiter matures at 32. Saturn return starts from 28 to 32. Jupiter, Saturn are two big planets. They are two teacher planets. People go through their classroom, their biggest test between 28 and 32. So before 32, I would not even push my friend to go too deep if they're so avoidant. But knowing, and again, it's personality driven, if I were their friend, I would definitely plant the seed, and I would say, when you are ready, know that this thing will come anyway again, like this problem that you're not wanting to see. Anyway, life will catch up. So better to deal with it now than later. Now, they may say no, they may say yes, it's up to them, but you should drop the seed.
Plant the seed.
Plant the seed.
So what you can do is, if you're a caregiver, you can plant the seed.
100%.
There's a lot of stuff you said about Jupiter and Saturn and age, and so let's go into, since you've decided to go there, let's go into Jyotish and therapy. Sure. Let me ask you, what is your definition of Jyotish from somebody who's seen a lot of rural, but also seen a lot of urban India and seen today's India. How would you explain Jyotish to a young person today?
For that, I must give a disclaimer. I don't come from any kind of religious baggage. My family was not an orthodox religious family, which is why I had a lot of freedom to pursue intellectual pursuits that were actually my interest. For me, Jyotish is advanced mathematics. I have great interest in mathematics. Calculus used to be my favorite subject. I like advanced philosophy. I like abstract concepts. My pastime was these things, like when I was growing up. So, for me, the association with Jyotish being a corrupt practice has not been that deep, and I am privileged when I say that. When I look around me...
When you say Jyotish being a corrupt practice has not been that deep?
It's not been, which is what I'm saying. So when I look around me, there are a lot of people in my circle who have resistance to Jyotish, and I understand why. Because it has been, I feel like mostly it has been corrupted into becoming advice, into saying very...
मैं आपको protect कर लूँगा.
और मैं tendencies बता रहा हूँ अभी. और यही होने वाला है आपकी लाइफ में और आप ये रेमेडीज करोगे तो ये ठीक हो जाएगा ऑटोमेटिकली.
So that is the corrupted part of Jyotish.
That is a very corrupt part of Jyotish, because that's not, I don't see, and as a deaf person, I don't see that being the function of Jyotish. That's one part of it, but then the prediction should really help the person. If the prediction is scaring the person, and it's actually making the family get even more like money focused, that you're helping the Jyotish make more the Jyotishi make more money. That's where corruption really is a little bit, and but that's so
okay,
many
but I'm
people.
very interested on this mathematics part that you spoke about. Because the first time I heard somebody say Jyotish for me is advanced mathematics. So I just want to take on that part.
Sure, but that's... I'm saying, I'm trying to give this disclaimer to say that
I'm not
it's
trying
a
to
lot
bypass
of...
the disclaimer.
No, I know. I'm saying that many people have, like, it's not like that for many people. Like, people are not able to see the advanced part of it because so much has, like, the families have really destroyed people. Jyotishis have really destroyed people sometimes in saying, like, very horrible things in ways that are very, like, scary, like, fearful.
Yeah, and I feel like that is an important point to not skip also, because in a way, when I come to somebody for advice, when I come to somebody with, giving my heart and giving my safe space and saying, guide me, the most fatally flawed thing in this world is a human being. So I think that's where it's important also. It's a delicate balance, because somebody can guide you, but somebody can really take you down. So I acknowledge that.
Also for queer people, like the whole, like, this is unnatural sexuality, abnormal sexuality, aapki shadi aise nahi hogi aur aise hogi. These are very stereotypical things that are within our culture in Jyotish. Yeah. So what is helpful to me, why I took the advanced mathematics route, why it came naturally to me, because I accessed it through the English mind again, for me as a young person, right, which was not so much about this or that, like very stereotypical ideas of, like, modern Jyotish. It was actually ancient Jyotish is very open, but also, like, American ideas, European ideas, like some of the American writers who've written on Jyotish, Dr. Robert Swoboda, when he writes, it's so beautiful, it's so accessible. In fact, his therapeutic myth of Saturn is the one that really, really helped me through my Saturn return and really taught me true Jyotish. So advanced mathematics comes from, of course, the Aghora books, from Robert Swoboda's work. But in general, Harshal, like, when you study the texts of Jyotish, you realize that it's, at the end of the day, intuition. It's a combination of very powerful intuition which comes through your own spiritual practice, and also comes through you being good with calculating the tendencies of a person's soul plan. So for me, it's a very esoteric astral level practice. I don't offer this publicly. I don't even say that I'm interested in this. I'm telling you because I know you. But in general, I would not bring this in so quickly. This is more, I leave it on my client. If they're interested in Jyotish, I'll say I'm interested and I go deep. Otherwise, I don't take it to this astral realm.
So when you say, so there are two things you've touched on. Tendency. So there's, what I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that set of mathematics, so interested to understand what the parameters for that set of mathematics are, which give you a pointedness of tendency of the person. Yeah. So the way I equate that is almost like how you have in modern psychology personality tests. That's also like a tendency that you tend to be this kind of a person. That's not like putting you in a box, because as we grow up and as we change through the years and as our experiences change, that also changes. So to me, what I'm taking out of this is it's almost like it's a direction map of what you're likely to be more. It's a map. And does that and also change then as your life changes, as your, like, are there input variables that impact the output variable as life changes?
Yes, there are not necessarily input or output variables, but there are variables, because consciousness is a living consciousness, and that's what Jyotish, Hindu philosophy, Upanishads, any religious philosophy, I would say, that is advanced and that's going to the core of nature is saying that nature is a living reality. Nature changes, it's a code. You ask for things, you get things back. You may not get it in this lifetime, you may get it in the next incarnation, and you may not realize, which is why we see many young people achieving fame at the age of 6, 8, some others being able to sing much faster than others, etc., etc. There are not many reasons for this other than the fact that it's an advanced soul or it's an advanced life. Right. Some people have trauma that will show up till 10. I meet many clients like this. Most of my clients are hyper successful CEOs, okay, who had lots of trauma by the age of 10. Like their parents died, accident happened, something. And then by 21, they got their next startup deal and they were good. Like this is who somehow I get in my practice. Right. So I'm saying all this to say that essentially Jyotish, like psychotherapy, is a craft of inner work. It's the craft of inner work. It's not an art, it's not a science. I would say it's a craft. You have to learn the tools so that you can get the best result for yourself. Now, the tools are varied because these are sciences, these are probabilistic sciences, like psychology, psychotherapy, these are probabilistic. Probabilities are possible. It's not a formula. That's why I can be Neha's therapist and I can do really well with Neha, and I can be Pooja's therapist and I can do horribly with Pooja, because Pooja and Neha just don't connect. And Neha can be an excellent therapist anyway, and Pooja is a lovely person, but the connection isn't there. Because it's a probability. Okay. So similarly, now I like what Dr. Svoboda says about this. There are physical planets and there are astral energies. The physical planets are the grahas and the astral energies are what capture you. This is a very depth take on it. Okay. So Saturn is the physical planet. Shani is the grahan. So Shani is the manifestation, the energy of the Saturn. So when they say you are under the influence of this Shani or this Jupiter transit, etc., they're saying that has an impact. That energy, the astral energy, has an impact on your mental health. Now, this is very interesting to look at if you just remove orthodoxy, convention, superstition away and you just look at what they're talking about. Like these practices are saying, nature has an impact on you, and within our philosophy, we have understood that these planets have an astral realm that you can access through ceremony, through ritual, through a havan, through group congregation ceremonies.
What's an astral realm?
Like there are physical realm, material realm, there's a spiritual realm.
Like I'm hearing it for the first time. Suppose if I'm hearing the word astral realm for the first time, I've heard it floating. I'm just trying to take this opportunity because I feel like there's something you can say about and explain to people about what is an astral realm really in this context. I don't know if we're getting somewhere with this, but I just feel like, so you're explaining it to me. The way I'm receiving it is like you're explaining it to me because I have a predisposition to understand an astral realm. But what if I'm somebody who is not got a predisposition? So like I get that spiritual, material, physical, material, astral. So it's kind of like, you're telling me to believe that there is an astral realm, but can you just give me some more juice to feel what an astral realm is? Like how do I see that in my life?
No, I actually have a resistance to that question itself, because I feel if it's not come to you naturally, you will not believe it. And nobody's juice will help you believe it, because that's your...
I guess I'm not trying to get you to convince me. My question is more curious from the point of view that if it's not come to me yet, how can it come to me?
Read more. Read Dr. Svoboda's book. Access spiritual texts. Let them sit in you and let them open you up by themselves. See, this is why I don't even speak about Jyotish publicly, or I don't speak about Reiki or any of these alternative practices. In my training classes, we do. In depth psychology for advanced practitioners, we do. But why do we not just offer it out to everyone saying this is there? Because superstition, because it's so in line with just believing things because someone said it. No. So what is really helpful for me in this is when my nature is very aligned to the reality of life, that I understand the sun rises at a particular point. I should probably wake up when the sun rises so that I will have the best morning time for myself when it's up. I probably should not use my phone too late in the night. Why? Because everything is resting. I should probably rest. When my menstrual cycle is on, I should probably just give my body a couple of days instead of forcing myself to do things that I don't like to do or do things that are difficult or strenuous for me to do. This is me being in tune intuitively with my body's cycle. If I do this enough years, I will then naturally be given the path to go deeper into nature's secrets or existence's ways. Now, here is where I feel why Hinduism is so difficult to explain also, even for people like me who think about these ideas every day, is because it's just such an abstract philosophy that it's hard to kind of give it in like bite-sized things. Which is why I say that if it's not come naturally to you, you don't have to believe it. In fact, your life is better. I'm really saying, like, it's better if you're fine in your box of what you understand life to be, then there's no need. Why will you have a need is when you will kind of go deeper into, okay, I guess this trauma is not healing even though I have spent 10 years on it. I guess I'm not finding the right partner even though I have been everywhere in the world and I've been with so many people. I'm not finding the right partner. Why? This is when you start to understand there is probably a larger play happening where there is this is now hypnotherapists talk like this, which I love hypnotherapists as well. They say there is a pre-birth plan, that before birth you already decide that I'm going to meet Harshal at this time, we're going to have this conversation, then I'm going to meet this person, I'm going to meet this person, and you move through your life's challenges that way. Okay, this is one theory. There are other theories that talk about karma. There are other theories that talk about perhaps you have a debt to pay to someone, and before that debt can be cleared, you will then get your next opportunity. So there are so many theories. And in psychotherapy, that's psycho-spiritual, which is who I am, like bringing in psychotherapy and spirituality. When you bridge these two, you make space for your client. This is not about what Neha believes. If Harshal believes that, Neha can guide Harshal through that because Neha has also studied it.
Got it. I mean, I got some of it because it is packed, what you said. And let me just take a little bit more on the mathematics side of it. You know, the mathematics part of Jyotish. Why do you say it is mathematics?
So, what is Jyotish is that you are like when a child is born, is like simple reductionist way to put it. Child is born, you are mapping the exact location where they are born. What is that map doing? It's mapping where the planets are in the sky to the location of that particular district or city or town. Now, how does this lead to any understanding? If you just think about, like, why would like a bunch of coordinates lead us to any deep understanding of psychology, human behavior? Now, this is the secret of the sciences, which Chinese astrology explores, Greek astrology is there, Indian astrology is there. 5,000, 10,000 years, or how many ever years, we've coded information that this degree at this minute means this. And in that, there is a nakshatra system that we have, which is very beautiful, which is the 27 nakshatras. You go into each nakshatra. You basically divide time into smaller and smaller bits. And within those smaller bits, you map that if Harshal was born on this degree, this is the tendency that his internal soul may have. And this is the tendency he'll have towards money. And this is the tendency he'll have towards health or whatever. Now, again, you only come to such depth if you are ready to receive the iceberg of life. If you are on the surface, that is fine. Maybe your soul is not even interested in this. As long as you're not hurting anyone and you're like comfortable on the surface, be on the surface. That's fine.
And I just want to add a little bit here, which is, so my view on this, or like how I receive Jyotish is that yes, it is tendency, but I also, and I know that it's probably the same with you as well, which is that the process of life teaches us that we have to rise above our tendencies, and that we have to really just work every moment to be able to interact with life, pass through life, and then each moment is an opportunity to rise above the challenges that life throws at you. And, you know, that's what I also love about the concept of Maya, because people look at Maya as negative. But if you look at Maya as almost like a purification filter that is helping you get better and better and better. And as you are able to walk through life, if you're able to do that and get to your purest self, where you're able to, like you said, then interact with nature and interact with all the elements in a way where you're one with them. And that is what the essence and core, I think, of spirituality also is. So like, yeah, while I look at Jyotish from a tendency point of view, I look at it from the tendency saying, protect yourself against these tendencies. Know that these are your strengths, but then just surf through life.
Since teaching and preaching and philosophy is so natural to me, because my Jupiter is very strong, I look at it, yes, as tendencies and as a school. Life is a school. Every particular period is a classroom, and a classroom has a teacher. So when you are in a Jupiter period, which is what Indian astrology helps you to understand which period you're in, you are going to meet a teacher. You're not a physical teacher. Your life on that 17-year period will be marked by tendencies that the astral realm of Jupiter is about, which is what? Teaching, preaching, philosophy, meeting beneficial business partners, life partners, etc. Saturn is a strict teacher. So during this time, this 19-year period, which is 19 years of Saturn, one is going to be marked by the tendencies of the astral realm of the planet Saturn. Okay, so it's very helpful to see this entire thing, that it's so easy to like condescend upon and say, isme to kuch nahi, ye to sab bakwas hai, spirituality to kuch nahi hota hai. It's very easy to just like, I guess this is your previous question, see it as a fantasy. See it like you're looking at Harry Potter. Like, why is it so easy to read Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and love it? And why is it so hard to read Tantra and Jyotish and Robert Svoboda and scoff at it? Why is it so easy? There's an internalized colonial lens there. If you just put the orthodoxy away and you just read these for what it is, you will see how deep they go and how much our rishis and sages have done through their own life. This is their own life practice. There was no school, or of course there was school, but there was no reward. Like, this is their own life that they have used to understand that if I do this asana, then I can connect to this particular lesson from Shani. So advanced yogis will tell you that they can feel the planets in their body. You can feel the astral impact of Shani in your shoulder, or etc. in asana. It's so deep.
Are they present today, these advanced yogis?
Yes, absolutely. In the south, we have some. There's like ashrams that you can go to, and there'll be specific people who will teach you. But of course, to meet the right teacher, one has to be deep oneself, and that comes as one matures.
Amazing. So I feel like I have so many more questions, but I also, very grateful for the time you've given us. And I hope that we can do some more, because I have a lot of questions. I feel like I didn't get through more than 10% of what I had planned for today. And then maybe next time there'll be more and more. But thank you so much for taking through so many different things. I just packed with so many bombs of realization. It was such a pleasure to do this. Thank you so much.
Harshal, it was such a pleasure as well. Thanks for asking me the right questions also, which I think the conversation's now getting juicy actually, as we're ending. Of course, the conversation was great. I'm sure people will benefit. But this is I think what happens when two people who have open depth within themselves can connect. And so I'm just saying this to say that whoever's watching this and etc. feeling a little bit inspired to go deep, please go deep. Use these conversations to not get influenced, like I say, but to get educated. and then if you think that, oh my God, Neha's saying something very different from my understanding of Jyotish or the corruption that I have seen, and perhaps this book will lead me to the next thing, or another podcast will lead me to the next thing, please do it. Don't shy away from that. That's where you'll come to your own answers.
Yeah. I feel like also when I'm doing this, after a lot of time I felt today that, like, particularly if it's a subject around mental health, then I will be trying to, like make it flow with a particular agenda. Not really an agenda, but like I'm trying to get from point A to point B because I'm trying to do that. But today I feel like I was trying to not do that and just be curious and listen and go to open up new paths. And I did feel like new paths starting to mushroom. So I'm going to listen to it again and hope to have you again to do this. And yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's it for today. What a conversation. I really hope you enjoyed it. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any comments, inputs, anything that you feel like we should have asked more of, please make the comments below this community that we can engage with and we can add value to. Looking forward to hear from you and looking forward to see you next time. Till then, enjoy and please do hit the subscribe button if you can. Thank you.